second bid is reportedly imminent from Man United, around 52 million euros. But what is your understanding of the situation and their pursuit of a new goalkeeper?
Yeah, so they were right on this one. I mean, they were bang on it in Italy in terms of Onana, and United spent the weekend basically deliberating over exactly what their tactics would be around the pursuit. They didn't want to go guns blazing at the weekend after the initial conversations that we had on Friday. They decided to sit back on it, and they were able to do that. Obviously, De Gea's wedding, they were very respectful of, and they didn't want to overshadow that or cause any issues really that were unnecessary in that moment. And obviously, De Gea still needs some clarification on all this too, because he's got a career that he wants to continue with. But basically, my understanding of it from what happened at the weekend was that United kind of set the bar at £45 million as to the limit that they wanted to go on, ideally, for Onana. Now, we're basically going to get to that point. I mean, 52 million euros, if that includes bonus, then that'll be about the figure that United were happy with all along. So that's happy days. And the understanding I have is that this deal is likely to proceed, and Man United will end up signing Andre Onana as a new goalkeeper for next season. I mean, what an unbelievable moment that will be for Man United. This isn't the big signing that we're expecting. In fact, it's at completely the wrong end of the field. We were told a priority absolutely is the man that scores the goals for next season, not the guy that stops them. We're expecting De Gea to get that one more season, but Onana changes everything. I would definitely single this out as a defining transfer in the way that Man United play next season. To have Mason Mount already through the door, to have Onana coming in, it would set their patterns of play off so much better than they have been previously. Obviously, Casemiro going to be so important to them next season going forward too. And then it'll all come down really to who can they get in as that number 9. But for now, Onana looks like it's going to happen as it stands right now. United confident that they can seal this transfer and for a very reasonable fee. And if you look at here, you're basically getting Onana and Mason Mount for £100 million. That's not too bad business.
It isn't. And I get what you're saying around it wasn't the area of the pitch people expected. But for a lot of Man United fans, signing a goalkeeper with the ability, both as a shot stopper, commanding his area, and of course his ability on the ball, we felt that it was absolutely paramount. And the back end of the season, the mistakes from De Gea, the inability to play out from the back, the amount of times we would succumb to being pressed, the amount of times he would try and, not even long balls, but he'd try and do a 30-yard, 35-yard pass into the middle to a player in space and just not find him. It was damaging us. And then everybody saw what Onana did in that Champions League final. And again, if we had a goalie that was able to pass like that in the FA Cup final, it could have been a very, very different game in my view. And if we could now add some more quality to this team as well. And I've been saying it for a while. I agree with you. I think this deal is seismic for Man United. I think it will be transformative in terms of how we play. And you look at most of the teams up near the top of the table or that have challenged for big honours in recent years, Liverpool, City, Arsenal have now got to that point. They all have goalkeepers who are very good with their feet. Very, very good. And the best teams in the world, they have astoundingly good goalkeepers. You probably argue maybe Real Madrid with Courtois. He probably isn't in that echelon of amazing with his feet. But even he's vastly superior to that of David De Gea. So, yes, a massive one for us. And I agree with you. I also feel like when you've got the press in Italy, the press in England, the press all across Europe, pretty much printing the same stories, and they're not just reiterating and quoting each other, you kind of have a feeling a deal is going to be done because everybody's sort of singing off the same hymn sheet, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, you go back to the Kim story that I know, was written about it abroad, but there were never really that positive signs from it at our end of things. I was always a little bit careful at not knocking it all down because it was being written about so heavily and actively. So I was cautious all along on Kim, but knowing that United did have interest, you obviously had to do that. But this Onana one has been different. It's also come about pretty quickly, really. If you think about the time frame we're looking at here, from De Gea basically being told that he wasn't going to be staying and released from his contract to the point we're at now, it's basically a week where they've gone from making the decision on De Gea, he's going, Onana talks, what can we do? This deciphering whether the player wanted to join Man United. He absolutely does want to join Man United. That's been absolutely critical in this, getting the player's head up that he was wanted to become Man United's number one. That was massive to them. Not only does he fit Ten Hag's philosophy, but he actually wants to be Man United's number one. That is a big moment going forward for United, and obviously in time for the pre-season as well, to get him actually through the door would be massive. At the moment, Man United don't really have a goalkeeper. Henderson's leaving, De Gea's not there, and Onana's not either. Like, they literally don't have a recognisable goalkeeper at this moment in time. It's pretty important that they do manage to sort this out quickly, and it looks like we're going to get a very fast ending to this transfer, well, not even a saga, transfer story.
Yeah, it absolutely is. And I think also picking him up for around £45 million is a snip. When you look at the quality of the goalkeeper, it's fairly cheap. To have Mount and him in both for around that 100 million mark, it then gives United time to focus on other areas. And of course, there's the rumours of Amrabat potentially coming to the football club. Again, this is all stemmed from the same Italian press that was adamant about Kim, but was also adamant about Onana. So that's why I say the United fans, don't take it all as gospel like it will 100% happen, but I also don't disregard it completely. I know Amrabat isn't a deal that you've been too familiar with yourself, but that's the kind of player I think United also need to go for as well as a striker. But what do you think's next for the club? Will it be the Hojlund deal? Will they go back in for Kane? Is there another striker on the agenda? Or do you think it will be that second midfield player?
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, on Amrabat, we obviously talked about this off air, and I said I don't honestly have too much to say on this, but what I do know is that he's been offered to them by, I think, third party, to be honest, just to see whether there was any interest there from Man United. I don't think they've dismissed the idea of signing Amrabat. I also don't think it's particularly close, and I think, from what I understand, the player might prefer actually going to La Liga. I think he might have offers there. So I think that is probably something that drags on a little bit rather than being anything imminent. Do United need like another midfielder right now? I mean, let's face it, like Casemiro's going to play that role. You've still got Eriksen in there. You've got Mason Mount in midfield now to help out Bruno Fernandes. McTominay and Fred are both still at the club. I don't think both of those players are leaving Man United. I think one of them will leave. I don't think it'll be both. And at the moment, I say it's probably more likely to be Fred. So I wonder if Scott McTominay even ends up leaving Man United at this moment in time. I know there's been fresh interest from abroad for McTominay in the last 24 hours, but I'm not convinced. I think that McTominay has been such a player that is respected by Ten Hag so much for like his work ethic and what he can bring to the team, and he doesn't cause a fuss. Wouldn't surprise me if he hung around while United figure out what they do with that one. And number 9, you can't get around the fact that like there's a gaping hole there. Like the only way around it is to play Marcus Rashford as the number 9 for next season. And do you want to be in that position? That's what Man United basically have to decide now. Now, look, you can obviously get around it. You've got options on the left. You've got Garnacho. You've got Jadon Sancho, who could both go out there. You've got options out wide right. You could even move Bruno out wide right if you wanted to get Mason Mount as the attacking 8, and have Rashford going through the middle as the out-and-out 9. Rashford has spoken to Ten Hag at the back end of last season and told him he's more than happy to become a number 9. He feels much more ready now to become a number 9, Marcus Rashford. And in a way, I think he wants that responsibility at some point at Man United if Ten Hag's ready to give it to him. Now, we see, though, that Rashford is just not clinical. He doesn't seem to be clinical or ruthless enough in that area of the pitch. He seems much better when he's out wide, coming inside. That just seems to be such a major strength of his play that it feels like you're missing something from him when he's a bit more static, I guess. Maybe that's what it is. Maybe it's that he doesn't have as much movement when he's at that 9. So United aren't close to that. If this drags on, might well be that Marcus Rashford has to play as the 9 when Man United begin the season. But in terms of options, Hojlund is the one that most progress has been made. It's probably the most active of any that I've heard about so far. What would the price point be, and does he genuinely fit what's going to help Man United? I think they're two massive questions that nobody knows the answer to at this stage. The valuation of 80 million for Hojlund won't be met at all. Be surprised if they went over 45 million for Hojlund. The same point really we're seeing over Onana and Mason Mount. I mean, you're signing those two at 55 million pound, 45 million pound. You're not going to go and spend 70 million pound on Rasmus Hojlund, a player that's barely proved himself so far in Serie A. Great prospects, but not too much more than that. And also doesn't actually open up the same avenues. I was speaking to a coach the other day about Hojlund and what he would bring. And I said, well, Weghorst wasn't like a great goal scorer, but he actually did help them get more out of Marcus Rashford. Maybe that's what Hojlund's there for. He said, but Hojlund doesn't do that. Hojlund won't open up spaces in the same way that Weghorst did. If you look at the way that he plays, doesn't really make those same movements. So that's not something that will come as naturally to him and could take some work. So you might neither here nor there, because Hojlund's not going to be a 17, 18 goals a year goal scorer in the Premier League in his first season. And if he's also not going to quite be able to open up the same spaces, then is he the right man for Man United right now, or do they need to punch bigger? Still no takeover, still no potential to go for Harry Kane at this moment in time, which is a shame because they would be straight into that conversation. Like at the moment with Bayern Munich pressing ahead with Harry Kane and all the conversations around it, Man United should be in that conversation. They should be giving him something to think about right now, but it's just not plausible.
Yeah, the Harry. I mean, I've been saying for a while now. I'm hoping in the latter back end of this window or something along those lines, United go back in for him. But that's again just me as a fan with a pipe dream and a hope that is what happens. But I think you're right. Look, Rashford, I think can score a lot of goals for us again, but I prefer him coming from that left hand side. That's where I think he's most dangerous. He's okay. He was okay last season when he got moved centrally during games, but that's against kind of tired legs. It's a little different from starting a game as the
that cup final, I just think I keep thinking of the FA Cup final. And if Man United had a proper 9 that day, even Vlahovic, right? Vlahovic is out there and gettable. If you'd have had him for the FA Cup final, I just feel like there was so much more potential to go and win that game. And if suddenly, you were looking at that lineup from Wembley and you're thinking, imagine you'd have had Onana in goal. Imagine you've had the option of Mason Mount breaking out in the midfield and that creativity and just that spark that he's got and the work rate too. And you also add a Vlahovic type figure. That team is completely overhauled in that sense. And also, you look at the other players around them, what you would get out of them. Jadon Sancho just seems to be crying out for somebody to play off too. Like Jadon Sancho, I think, wants a target in there to know what he's going to get, to understand fully the movements that you're going to be getting in there. What's he aiming for? Who's he creating chances for? I feel like if you can get the right fit of striker, you might unlock also something new in Jadon Sancho. He's got one more year to turn this round at Man United. I don't think he'll leave this summer. You've got one more year of Sancho. You've got literally one of the best English talents we've had in the last 10 years coming here. You've spent a lot of money on him. You spent ages chasing him. You don't let him go at this point. You're like, right, we've got to give everything to making sure we get the proper version of this guy, because potentially you've got one of the most dangerous creators in the Premier League if you can get there. But in order to get that, you need that number 9.
Mate, I absolutely agree with the need for this number 9. I'm hoping it's what we kind of focus on next and we go and get the right individual.